Yesterday I received some Nepenthes seeds off eBay. So I have 20 Nepenthes veitchii, 10 Nepenthes jacquelinae, and 20 Nepenthes burbidgeae, or however you pronounce this. So I have these seeds and I want to plant them. And I think what I'm going to do is plant them in an old CD spindle case. Now the case I selected has it, it basically screws in, so you do have a little bit of depth to it over here, which is good for putting the media. You want to avoid using a case like this which slides, because you do have grooves where it will make a mess and it's not deep enough and everything. Plus these collect dust, and then it's not perfectly sealed from the environment. Whoops. And you have another kind that this one is a little better built. So this one would be a little better. This is nice and deep. You could probably put tape or something to secure that. It slides into a little groove. So you could, this can be managed if you need to. So anyway, since I have one that screws, and it's not as deep as that second one I showed you that I'm not using, but it does have enough depth to it that I can use it. Now I went ahead and put some sphagnum peat moss in the cup and added distilled water. I tried to do a little spritzing at the top because it takes longer for the very top portions to get wet, but it should be fine because I'm still going to spritz this and everything. So I'm going to go ahead and put this in there just a little bit. You don't want to use your fingers. You can always use tweezers and just tweeze little bits. It didn't really soak up very well. Probably if I let it soak overnight or something, but anyway. I'm going to go ahead and just add as much as I can from this. As I get deeper, it will be wetter. So I managed to put most of the moss in here. I don't want to overfill this, and you can see how wet it is because it was very soggy at the bottom. So even though it was a little dry at the top, it's fine because all that excess moisture will be absorbed into it. Now before I plant the seeds, what I'm going to do is, a lot of people use peat moss and then they use like ground up sphagnum moss. And I don't have ground up sphagnum moss, and I don't really want to put some in the blender. So what I'm going to do is an experiment. I'm going to take this, why blend, a lot for just a small little thing. And I'm just going to go ahead and manually spread it this way. So I'm, using all the ground up fiber moss or sphagnum moss, but without using a blender to grind it or buying it pre-ground. The larger pieces I can just, not put in there. And I can go ahead and add more. So you can see I'm getting little fibers now to go in there, and you want to just keep doing this until you have enough. Realistically, growing it on plain peat moss without the long fiber sphagnum that's been ground will be fine as long as the seeds remain moist, and since we're going to have a lid, it's going to be like a miniature CD spindle terrarium for them. It should be fine, but I could put just a little just to have the best of both worlds. Get as much as I can with these. I can also chop my own using a cutting board if I wanted to, but this will give me a small amount that I can use. Okay, so I don't really have a nice even layer on here, but I do have some at least. It will, as I wet it and it hydrates, it will expand a little bit, but still not cover the whole thing. And I can always break down the larger pieces. It really would be fine, you know, if it's not all coated. These are things of preference, as long as you have a good moist medium and you keep the seeds moist and give them ample time of like 3 months to a year, or I think as low as 4 weeks for the viable seeds. But, you know, it just depends on how old these seeds are. And then whoa. Spray from a distance, and you want to get them nice and moist. Okay, now one thing that you may or may not be wondering, but if you weren't wondering, you will, is how am I going to keep all 3 of these seeds straight in one single packet? You may have been wondering what this is. What I did was I took 3 strips of craft foam, and you can buy a sheet of craft foam for $1 from like a craft or hobby store like Michael's or Hobby Lobby. You want the kind that is non-self-adhesive. So I cut it and I put the variety, and this way I'm able to mark, and I have an arrow drawing to which one goes where. So now I have them, you know, isolated. I think I want to add just a little more of the moss to this side. So now I have them isolated, so I'll be able to identify, as long as I don't drop this anywhere or something that I mix everything up, you know, it should be fine this way versus having 3 separate containers. So let's see, the first one is Nepenthes burbidgeae, if I pronounced it correctly. You know, I haven't opened these up from once they arrived, so hopefully I have all 20 seeds in here and I'm able to manage. I don't even have a small pair of tweezers handy at the moment. So here we have the seeds. Wow. So now the tricky part is spreading them into their respective section and spread them out evenly. I'm going to just damp them down so they're at least in contact. You know, you want them on the surface, not buried, and they need to receive some sort of light. I'm just going to sprinkle this extra debris. And then we have the veitchii, if I pronounced it correctly. And I like the way these are actually packaged in the paper. You know, it's using like a triangle. So I could sit and count 20 seeds, but the reality is, it seems from like looking online on how to plant these, that a lot of seeds may take a while to grow, and they also, you know, I think they have a low germination rate because of that, or also depending on how old the seeds were before you bought them. And I don't know how old the seeds are, but at least I can know the day I planted, which is today, and then I can monitor. It seems like this packet actually had more seeds than the other packet. So this is a little crowded on this side, which means this may give me the most plants. Assuming they germinate. And now the jacquelinae, I got half the amount of seeds of the jacquelinae than the others. I don't know why he didn't have the full amount when I bought them, but you know, he was selling them in packets of 10 versus 20 for some reason. Might be a harder to come by variety. They're actually smaller seeds too, as you can see. I want to make sure I don't spill over and then misidentify a plant. You know, one thing about Nepenthes seedlings is it's hard to identify them from their juvenile pictures sometimes. Okay, so now I have some around here, And I have them all planted. And what I'm going to do is now spritz them from a distance so I don't fling seeds around. Because what you want to do is you want to wet the seeds once you plant them, so you want to spray on top. And I'm going to give it a really good spritzing this time. You know, as it gets wet, you can spray closer because you're not going to fling everything off. And you see even the labels are getting wet, but since I used a ballpoint pen, I don't have to worry about the ink bleeding and messing up, so I can still read what it says. But, you know, I want to make sure I'm not going to blow this all over the place. Oops. Okay. That should be adequate because it's going to be in an area of high humidity, but I'm just over spritzing just to make sure this moss, which you can see how the dry moss is light and this is dark, so it's starting to, you know, get wet. And all this excess water sitting on top will eventually basically just add to the humidity and make sure that the sphagnum moss is absorbed all the way. And then I can go ahead and put the lid on, make sure I screw it without, you know, screw it back on without really messing up the layout and everything. And I can place this in a brightly lit area like a nice window or under grow lights, and wait a few months for them to grow. I can always loosen this open if I need to add more moisture or just to let it breathe every day so fresh air can come in. And hopefully I'll get some nice little baby Nepenthes seedlings in a few weeks to months. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and thanks for watching.